What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with AC, Dilly Vanilli, and Kevole. We are here to discuss the Minnesota Vikings 2018 season predictions preview. Let's take a look at the Vikings this year. I mean, the Vikings, they're a team last year that sort of shocked us because we saw them as a talented team coming into the season with a loaded roster, but then what happened to their quarterback and Sam Bradford went down. We never expected Case Keenum to come out of nowhere and lead this team to the NFC Championship. Their defense was number one. Their offense was electric with two dynamic receivers. Dalvin Cook even went down, and they still were a good team. So the Vikings come in as one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year in 2018. The only huge loss is that of OC Pat Shurmur. Besides that, I mean, there haven't been many losses on this team or as in terms of a staff. They did add Sheldon Richardson at defensive tackle. Offensively, they get Dalvin Cook back. They brought in the star quarterback Kirk Cousins for big-time money, guaranteed. John DeFilippo from the Eagles is going to be the OC. And Mike Zimmer's still the head coach, who usually puts out a good defensive football team. What do you guys see from this team? Is it going to be as good as last year, NFC Championship team, worse than last year, or are they going to take that next step to the Super Bowl?
I guess I'll go ahead and start. Yeah, this Vikings team brings a lot of good things to the table, especially with what they did in 2017, even with their lackluster performance in the NFC Championship game. Not a lot of pieces have left the table, but there's still a lot of good things to look at. New quarterback coming in, Kirk Cousins. I really want to see what he does in terms of production this year, because Mitch and I have been decently high on Kirk Cousins and the expectations of him. And I think going from this team, or going from the Washington Redskins to this team is going to be a big improvement for him. The running game I really like. I love Dalvin Cook. I wanted to see more of him, and then he got hurt. So let's see if he can come back. If not, Latavius Murray actually did a pretty good job of filling in that gap last year with Jarrett McKinnon, who was, I think, their biggest loss, actually, besides Case Keenum. Kyle Rudolph, not the greatest tight end in the world, but he's okay. A great 1-2 duo wide receiver at Thielen and Diggs, but I am questioning whether they can do with a three receiver. You got Kendall Wright and Laquan Treadwell. Treadwell has not caught basically any footballs in the 2 seasons he's there, so it's a little concerning. And Kendall Wright is Kendall Wright, so we'll see what that goes. But as in terms of Thielen and Diggs, really like what I see out of those two, obviously. Offensive line, pretty decent. Defensively, this is a loaded defense. This is obviously what got them a lot of attention in 2017 because they had a very, very good defense with a lot of players. We don't know how many people are going to be contracted after the season, but in terms of this year in particular, they got a lot of talent. Linval Joseph coming in, big signing there. Sheldon Richardson, also a really great signing here for them. Everson Griffin, awesome in 2017. Anthony Barr is very good. Eric Kendricks, a guy that doesn't get a lot of attention, I think should get more, is Sendejo. I think he should be very good. Harrison Smith, obviously, stepped up his game in 2017. And Xavier Rhodes is a very good cornerback. So a lot of talent here on the defensive side. I wonder, the thing is that they went off to such a hot start in 2017, and that's how they got their 13-3 record, is they were just so explosive and winning so many games after Sam Bradford went down. So the question is, can they continue the hype, and can they continue to do everything? I think they'll take just a little bit of a step back, just like I had the Eagles going down 1 game in their record. I actually have the Vikings going 2 games down. I have them going 11-5 this year. I want to see what Kirk Cousins does in this offense. It's a different quarterback situation. So even though I do think he is better than Case Keenum, I just want to see how he fits with the whole group and whether or not he's going to be able to hold up the hype, because then we really will know how great Kirk Cousins is or not. Like I said, I want to see what the third receiver can do, and I think this defense is very, very stacked. So I think there's a lot of quality there, but I actually think they will be the 4th seed in the NFC. I think there's a lot of top-tier talent in terms of teams right near the top of the NFC. So a lot of good stuff here, and they have a difficult schedule. They have some pretty difficult teams they're going to have to beat in order to be the top of the top. So I have them at 11-5, 4th in the NFC, but they will win their division, in my opinion.
Vikings at 10-6. but I think that's generous. I want to go even lower, but I can't really looking at the schedule. I do think they have this all-pro defense. But as an Eagles fan, the Vikings fans came into Philadelphia, dressed up Rocky in Vikings gear, chanted all the way, and then cried like little babies when they went home because they thought they were going to come into Philadelphia and take the Eagles down, and the game was not even close. That defense didn't show up. That was supposed to be all-pro during the season. And I think that loss hurts them immensely. Yes, they get Kirk Cousins, but I do think the way Keenum played in their wins, I don't know if you can play much better than that. And what we have seen is Cousins not be able to finish games. I think Cousins was great in Washington, but I've seen him enough not be able to finish that last drive off to win the game. Yes, they get Dalvin Cook back. I do think Dalvin Cook is going to be a great running back, but I do think he still is going to have lingering injury problems. He did in university as well. And my only issue is I think losing Jerick McKinnon is actually going to be a big loss because he was unbelievable on third down and pass catching for them. And I think he's going to be somewhat of a loss. You could say all good things about Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They have some depth at wide receiver position. I do think their biggest weakness is Terrence Newman still playing slot corner. As we saw in the playoffs, he just doesn't have the speed. Commend him for being 40, being corner and playing still, but he just does not have the speed. And I think we got to see. I think Everson Griffin and Daniel Hunter have a lot to prove because they could not get pressure in the playoffs. Even against New Orleans, they barely won that game, right? So we saw some issues with that defense in 2 games in the playoffs, not just one. Obviously, one game playing well enough to win, but the next game, you've seen them be this all-pro team for the whole season, and then just to, not show up in the playoffs. I think, we should be talking about that a bit more of what they did in the playoffs. They were lucky to win the first game, and they got their ass kicked on the second game. So I think moving forward, we should watch that a bit. All in all, I think the Packers and Aaron Rodgers back is going to eat up this defense. They're going to be 10-6, and depending on what happens with the ties, they might be able to sneak in. But I'm going to have around 3 teams, probably 10-6. So we'll see how they get in there. And it's not like they have a tough schedule. I mean, it's not like they have an easy schedule to start. That first game against San Fran, it's at home. So, that's going to be tough for San Fran. But then you go Green Bay right away in Green Bay. Buffalo's somewhat easy. But then you go Rams, Eagles. That's the first 5 weeks, right? So let's see if they can get out of that. I think that they could beat the Eagles at home. I think they might have that edge of what happened last year, but I don't think it matters because they didn't lose the one that was important. And at the end of the day, I'm going 10-6, maybe a wild card team, but the Packers are back and no more of this Vikings getting handed the NFC North.
Ooh. Kevole, what's your response to that?
Well, I'm actually arguing with myself because I have them at 11-5. But I want to point out a couple of things here to build almost on AC's to build further on this argument. Their losses were to Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger, like him or not, considered an elite quarterback. Their Cam Newton beat them in the regular season.
He ran all over them too.
Yep. This top elite defense that everyone was talking about went into the second half of that New Orleans Saints game. Mind you, that game was at home. They blew a 17-0 lead and needed a miracle and basically a mental error from a rookie to actually win that game. They, as AC mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles, a top-flight offense, shredded this defense like there was no tomorrow. I understand what you're saying, Billy, about how this defense is considered all-pro, but I actually think that you can make a really legitimate argument that this defense has been considered quite overrated. And let's look at Kirk Cousins. Behind 1 to 8 points, he's 70 for 123 in his career, 56.9. He has a quarterback rating of 63, been sacked 11 times, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So I know that you guys are in love with Kirk Cousins, but I think in certain situations...
Love is a little strong, but I like him.
love, like, whatever, but in certain situations, there are things that Kirk Cousins doesn't get done. I think 11-5 is because I think the talent around Kirk Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, Dalvin Cook in that offense, I think can get him a lot of wins. But I think when it comes down to big situational games against really tough quarterbacks and really tough teams, I don't see the Vikings there. I do have them as the 3rd seed at this point, and I'll stick to that. But I think when it comes down to it against tougher teams, I don't think the Vikings are as good as people think that they are. And I certainly don't see them as a really legitimate Super Bowl contender. They're not the Eagles Saints camp, in my opinion.
You are not sold on this NFC North, are you? You don't like any team in this division.
Okay, as for me, man, this is a negative video, man.
I was positive.
Okay, I would like to say that this is Kirk Cousins' best team he's ever played for. So if there is a season, it will probably be next year where he can really prove himself. But I mean, this year, because it's the first year and it probably some, change comes into that. But this is certainly the best, most talented team he's played around. So we'll see Kirk Cousins at hopefully his truest potential this year. But you guys brought it up. They have a lot of talent. Now, the areas of concern, Pat Shurmur is gone. John DeFilippo, I think, is cool. But, I mean, Pat Shurmur made this offense work for the most part, especially with Case Keenum at the helm at quarterback. He put, Adam Thielen in situations in the slot to make things happen. He put this running game in situations without Dalvin Cook to make things happen. Now, Dalvin Cook is back. We'll see how healthy he is. I think he'll have a good season this year. The offensive line is a legitimate concern for me. I do not think the offensive line is very good. I think it's actually lackluster. I think it could be the biggest concern when they play elite defenses and teams in the playoffs. Defensively, I just think they got extremely lucky in terms of injuries. Like, I don't remember one player on their team that was important other than Dalvin Cook. Like, on defense, I don't remember one player getting hurt for any period of time, and that's extremely rare. And when you don't have a lot of depth on your defense, that's really concerning. Outside of, I think, maybe corner, they have some depth, like Waynes, Rhodes, Hughes, Newman can play if he needs to, Alexander. That's pretty good. But, I mean, if Harrison Smith goes down, or Hunter goes down, or Griffin goes down, or Barr or Kendricks goes down, they have a legitimate hole at one of those positions. Now, their starters are really good, and I think Richardson will help that, although he didn't have a great year in Seattle last year. I just think, they got really lucky with a lot of things last year, including the division not being very good, including Rodgers getting hurt, including not a lot of injuries, including Case Keenum not having to play a lot of good defenses, including, them not playing a lot of good quarterbacks. So I just feel like the Vikings, even though I still have them in the playoffs as the 6th seed, I think, or the 5th seed, I still believe that they are going to take a step back. I have them at 10-6. But, I think you look at that schedule, as AC brought up, you're looking at some very difficult games here, especially at the beginning. And I could argue they could start at least 2-3. I mean, they play week 1's going to be very interesting because they play one of the best offensive coaches in the league. How's that going to fare against the Vikings defense? Then they play Aaron Rodgers in his home building. Then they play the Rams, one of the best offenses in the league, after the Bills, which should be an easy win at home. Then they play the Eagles, another great offense. So, I mean, they're going to be really tested, and they play good teams here. You got the Cardinals, the Jets, whatever. Then you play the Saints, who I think is going to be more motivated than anyone to win that game. And then you play the Bears in Chicago, which is tough. The Lions in Detroit, which will be tough because it's divisional. You play the Packers again. You play the Patriots in New England. So that's a tough schedule. I have them winning 10 games, but it's not going to be easy.
10 games. All right. Interesting.
Well, and I just want to bring up, too, if you look at it, the one injury they did have, too, in that Eagles game was Sadejo. Remember going down?
Yeah. And
that was even big, too, because I do think Sadejo's a good player. The one thing I will say, when you did talk about the coaching, is DeFilippo. The one thing with him is he wasn't calling plays at all. That's the one thing about Eagles where I know we lost Frank Wright, and the only thing I know it kind of maybe changes practice kind of setup. But at the end of the day, Doug Peterson is the head coach that is an offensive play caller that calls the plays. So DeFilippo's never called plays, and now he's the OC, but a lot more pressure being the OC that has to call plays than the head coach. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that, because we don't, he doesn't have a lot of experience.
I will say, though, I have
compared to Pat Shurmur. You know what I mean?
Zimmer, though. I think Zimmer's a good coach. Good enough to get it done.
Zimmer's a good coach too, but like that was Pat Shurmur's offense.
Yeah, for sure. That's what. Yeah.
That's why I'm only thinking it's like now Flippio has to come in and now be like, this is his, right? So
we all see the Vikings in a similar light, at least. Not quite as good as last year, but still a good team and still good enough to make the playoffs for all of us. Did all of us have them in the playoffs? Yes, and winning the division for 2 of us.
Yeah, I have them tied with 2 other teams, but I don't know exactly what the tiebreaker situation. I have to look.
The only one to pick them to win the. Wait, Kev, were you picking them to win the division?
I am picking them to win the division. Yeah.
Okay.
And you Minnesota Vikings fans, come again to Philadelphia and try to dress up Rocky. It worked for you the last time. Try to do it again. See what happens.
All right. On that note, hope you guys enjoyed.
Fools.
I hope you guys enjoyed this preview of the Minnesota Vikings. Probably not, because AC just stuffed a bunch of NFC Championship shit in your face. But if you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more NFL. Peace out, guys.